In Michigan, 22% of our children ages birth to 5 are living in poverty. In St. Clair County, the rate is only slightly lower, at 18%. Children in poverty are not getting the great start they deserve. These children do not have opportunities to have early childhood experience that will have them ready and eager to succeed.
I had a real shock when I started visiting homes in St. Clair County and seeing the environments in which children today are living. It was a shock to me and to others that I shared. I don't believe anyone in the county even has a beginning of an understanding of what kind of conditions some of our children are living in. We have children that are living in homes that have no running water, lead paint base on the floor, windows, peeling off the walls and the ceiling, living in warehouses without electricity. We have children that are living not much better than animals, to be truthful. And I don't believe that the people in this county even can imagine that that's going on, but it is.
The cost of starting behind is immeasurable, not only to the child, but to Michigan's education system, healthcare, corrections, military, and other areas that impact the safety and the economic health of our state and our community. Unready children are less likely to thrive and more likely to stress school resources by repeating grades and requiring special education services.
The real lifelong effect is the impact it has on our community. The individual person will probably never fulfill its greatest potential. But on a community level, this is an extremely serious and costly event. As our individual members of our society don't function as well, we as a community have to support them. More of them will end up incarcerated, more of them will end up unhealthy, and we know that these things cost us money in the long run. So it means a less effective, a less healthy community.
Michigan saves over $1 billion per year because of past investments in pre-kindergarten. These savings come from fewer children repeating grades and needing expensive special education services, and from fewer teens and young adults ending up in the criminal justice and welfare systems.
It costs the taxpayer 7 to 11 times more to educate a child that has a special education need. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it. They do deserve it. But the problem is even if it's just a speech problem, it's 7 to 11 times more to educate that child than the average child.
We can have children who enter kindergarten tired, hungry, lonely, and not ready. Or we can invest in early childhood and see the differences in children and their families.
We have a disproportionately high level now of children that are born in these toxic stress environments. And you have to ask yourself, is it not possible that that is why now, after 2 and 3 generations of this, we are having these spontaneous episodes of random violence and these high incarceration rates? And as a community, aren't we supposed to respond to that in a positive way? I think the way to do it is to go back to the underlying cause, which is that developmental stage of early childhood.
We get children in kindergarten from all of those environments. We get children that have never picked a book up, to children that have had preschool, that know all the letters of the alphabet, that know their name in print. They know how to sit, they know how to listen. And so when children enter kindergarten and the kindergarten teacher has 28 to 30 children in front of her, she has all types of children that have come ready to learn and those that have never had any learning at all.
Well, some kids do enter that way, and obviously some kids don't. And that's the thing about early childhood. You have kids all over the the gamut of school readiness, and developmentally, if they're there yet or not, we see all levels.
90% of a child's brain is developed very, very young. And that means that all that foundational, children are born with billions of neurons. And whatever happens to those neurons happens very early on. Because if those connections are not made and solidified, then by the time they're 6 months to a year old, they begin to weed out, if you will. They begin to die off. If they're not used, the old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. So those things begin to die out, and it's harder and harder then to make those neurological connections and lay that foundation. So from that point then, children are learning and they're building upon a foundation that is unsteady, that has gaps and holes in it.
In St. Clair County, 13% of babies are born to mothers with less than adequate prenatal care. In Michigan, 23% of babies are born to mothers with less than adequate prenatal care.
By providing her early access to health care, continuous access to health care, the child in uterus is much more able to develop uninterrupted. A woman's ability to avoid toxic chemicals to the baby, such as alcohol, tobacco, smoke, and environmental toxins, are very important for a fetus's development. And we do know that women who receive care in their first trimester do have better outcomes.
Taxpayers in St. Clair County pay for just under half of babies born here. 43% of births in our county are paid for by Medicaid. In the state of Michigan, 41% of the births are paid for by Medicaid. Data shows that this number increases each year. Without a good, solid foundation, children have nothing to build on. They will begin their education with a gap that is difficult to close. Numerous studies prove that children who start school behind tend to stay behind. In fact, children who repeat a grade are 30% more likely to drop out and 90% more likely if they repeat 2 grade levels. 12% of children in St. Clair County are not proficient in reading at the 3rd grade level.
The Great Start Collaborative is a group of social agencies and schools and individuals who are interested in building infrastructure here in St. Clair County for early childhood. And when we look at early childhood, we need to look at all the areas. We need to look at health, we need to look at social, emotional, physical, and educational. It's not just having a child know their ABCs. We have to meet all of the needs for those children before they really can get a good start.
The Great Start program is wonderful because it gives the parents tools to use just on an everyday basis. The things that they show you to do is just, you can use everyday items around your home. It's not, you don't have to go out and buy something expensive. You just use what you already have to teach your children.
The goal of all these services is that we want children to be ready, be prepared, so that when they enter kindergarten at the age of 5, they are on par with every one of their peers.
Yeah. This right here says today's weather. So today's weather is cloudy and cold.
I think the intervention was important because he's so far behind with development just on the basic levels that I couldn't imagine putting him in kindergarten and he would just be so far behind. He'd be putting back grades and being put into special programs. I want him to start off with all the other children his age.
My son's now in 2nd grade. He's full-time inclusion. He's doing all regular classes, and had we not started when he was 3, it wouldn't have been caught until he was in kindergarten, and then so he would have been behind. So getting the early evaluations is why he is where he is today.
His teacher said that he is coming along so well. I mean, everything, he expresses himself, and that was the one thing on all the paperwork that we filled out, that was the one thing that I said I wanted him to be able to communicate with me, because he would talk and I would say something and I didn't understand him, and I'd cry and he'd cry, and he is. It's like a miracle. It's like a miracle.
Children need support from everyone. Parents, educators, community members, business leaders, legislators, and you. Everyone has a prime opportunity to get involved in supporting early childhood education. An investment in early childhood education today will have large impacts on a highly skilled workforce and productive society members tomorrow.
In our state, we're working as ISDs across the state to help buoy up and support early childhood programs and support parents. And so we're seeing that amongst in our region, also in our county, where we're bringing preschool providers in along with the school people so that we can talk about what it is we need to teach in order to have students ready for kindergarten when they come in. So what should the curriculum be? How will we know they're succeeding? By looking at the kinds of screeners we're using. What do we do if there are gaps? How can we address those gaps together? So we're learning together as a learning community how to reach out to parents and children and make their experiences positive.
This is my 35th year as an educator, and I've seen all gamuts. I started out as a high school teacher and coach, and the middle part of my career I served in a school that was a K-8 setting. I became a K-8 principal, and one of the things that became evident, early intervention, the sooner you can get to people, the better you are. Whatever the goal is or however you're trying to work with people, the sooner you can intervene, the better off you are. So I've learned the foundation is irreplaceable. So to legislators, for people that are funding, for decision makers, for those of us in local schools, we know we need to do whatever we can to invest in early childhood education. And the reason is because it's the greatest return. It's the best value. Where can you get the best return on your dollar? And I think there's not a better place than investing in early childhood education.
Are we willing to change things, take on the status quo, and actually do what we need to do to help kids, not just make it a pleasant place to work? And that's what we face. And so what we do is going to decide the future.
Our most precious resource and future workforce needs our attention now. It is in all of our best interests for each and every child to grow up to be well-adjusted, well-educated, and productive members of society.